soundtrack.
What is up? Welcome to another edition of SacTown Movie Buffs TV. Once again, it's your boy Kier, the critic. Today I'm with my co-host Jason. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. And today we are actually going to be interviewing Ben Friedman, who is a film critic based here in Sacramento. How you doing today, Ben?
Good. How are you guys doing today?
Good, good. Can't complain. Can't complain.
You ready to talk film?
I'm always ready to talk film. This guy, I'm sure, is ready to talk film as well.
Yeah, always.
So we always, film is like something that we've been best friends for years, and we've kind of been talking film for like the last 25 years. Mm-hmm. Before we get into some of your films, so just wanted to get some information on you. So you're born and raised here in Sacramento?
Born and raised in Sacramento. Clarification, I was actually born in LA, but I lived there for 6 months, so
California.
Basically born and raised Sacramento.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Been here forever, love this town, and this is the town where I fell in love with movies. I went to Art in 14, Cinedomes growing up back then, Greenback 16, all those theaters.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, my development of film love, like, it's here. It's, like, engraved in Sacramento. So it's so fun being a film critic here back in my hometown.
No, I agree. How long have you been a film critic?
Let's see. I'd say about 3.5 years now. Right after college is when, because I graduated 2020, right after the pandemic.
Okay.
So basically that's when I started doing it, where I'm like, well, I have all this free time from the pandemic closing everything. So I started then, and that's, it just started off on my Instagram, just reviewing movies on my Instagram stories.
Right.
And then I think by 2021, I'm like, why am I not doing this a little bit more professionally?
Okay.
And that's when my channel, Into the Beneverse, or Beneverse Movie Channel, launched. And that's what I've been doing it since. I've been doing the website, my movie review channel, and writing for a magazine out in the East Coast called Highbrow Magazine.
Okay.
Ever since. I think I got that job right at the beginning of 2021. So I've been there for 2.5 years now.
Well, great. And then you said the Highbrow Magazine. How often do you write for them?
It depends with the season. I am far more comfortable writing about the award circuit.
Okay.
So typically during the fall, winter, you'll see my name far more often on the website. During the year, I probably give them 1 to 2 articles every 2 months or so. So maybe 1 a month on average, depending.
Okay, nothing wrong with that. I used to write for a magazine as well at one point.
Just like a local one in Sacramento here. It's called IFC Rant.
Right.
Yeah, it was fine. It was a long time ago. It was like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was nice. Yeah, I did my top 10 in 2003 in that one I remember. Yeah.
That was quite some time ago. Yeah.
Do you remember your top one from 2003?
Kill Bill Volume 1.
Oh, good choice.
Yeah.
Very good choice.
Yeah.
That was my top that year as well.
I think I would probably guess that would be my top for 2003 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal film. It's been my all-time top 10.
Yeah.
So, obviously we're going to get into some movie discussions, just get some questions and, things of this nature. I know you love talking about film, writing about films, things of this nature. So just going to, who are some of your favorite directors?
I find that directors, for me, like my favorites, it changes with the movie release calendar, because then I'm like, oh yeah, that is one of my favorite directors. Like, we spent a few minutes before going on air talking about Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
And I realized how long of a love that I've had with Wes Anderson films. And then, of course, Martin Scorsese has a film coming out later this year. So that was another one where I just was like, yeah, Scorsese. If I had to give one easy answer, I think the answer is Scorsese.
Okay.
But, I have a love for all of them. Tim Burton was one growing up.
Oh, yeah.
Everything he did, that was such an influential one for my household. Like, my dad loved the Tim Burton art style. My sister, who was an artist, also just like grew up loving Tim Burton. So we're a Tim Burton household, and Defenders still to this day.
Defenders to this day. No, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm a big Tim Burton fan as well. I like Scorsese a little bit more. He's probably my second favorite director, so I'm a huge Scorsese fan. But I did want to go back to Wes Anderson. I know we had a conversation a little bit before. I think we all just recently saw Asteroid City, and I was just hoping to get your take on that.
Yeah, this is a fun one because I actually haven't talked about this one publicly yet. I haven't shot my review or written my review for Asteroid City yet. I saw this Saturday at Century Arden, and just there was this experience of going to a Wes Anderson movie at 1 p.m. like in the day, and just not knowing what you're going to get. And what I loved about Asteroid City was I actually had no clue what the movie was about. The trailer does like an incredible job at completely misdirecting you of the story. And going into it, I just found it so magical, because it's not only the story of this 1950s town, it's really the story of how art is made and how artists respond to art, and how the artists and art are just like so co-aligned with the actors and everything. Basically what makes the film, what is the DNA of a film. And it was so interesting of experience, me being on TikTok. I, of course, been seeing the Wes Anderson TikTok trends where they recreate the style and aesthetic. And what's then so interesting is going into this movie and then seeing kind of the master do that, and also seeing that in lieu of everything going on in Hollywood right now with the writer's strike.
You're right.
And just like this push for AI in film, and just, I think this film is a very good response to everything going on in Hollywood, where it's just like the magic of movies is not something you can just measure. It's just there, and you have to be able to tap into that. And if you can't tap into it, it's not going to be successful. So coming out of Asteroid City, I was just so blown away by Wes' vision and just the artistry that he is able to present a pretty complex story and make it presentable for I'd say a mass audience, maybe a little bit smaller than a mass audience, but certainly accessible to the common.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I agree with that. I mean, I will say that, and I'll get into your opinion on that film in a second. I will say, in my personal opinion with Wes Anderson, I think that, he's a known director, but I don't know if he's a huge director like this film. I don't know if it's going to be like a giant hit, in terms of when you say mass audiences. I just don't know if it's going to be like a big blockbuster or everybody and their grandma's going to go see this film, is the only thing I would say, because I think he has a certain flavor and a certain style that it's not going to gravitate to all mass audiences, just in my personal opinion. I don't know if you...
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was great. I'm a big fan of his. I've followed him since Bottle Rocket way back in the late 90s, his very first feature-length film. I thought it was fantastic. It is probably my favorite of his since Fantastic Mr. Fox, actually. Yeah. And it was kind of like kind of like what you were saying, like it's not going to make $100 million. There's no way. But, and when I went to see it at a fairly busy show around, I think I saw it Friday night. It was probably about half full in there. Some people were audibly confused. And, some people were having a blast. I was having a blast and laughing. Right. But it's like he's not a one-size-fits-all director, and I like that.
I'm sorry, that's all I was saying, is I think that his style, it doesn't gravitate, I don't think, towards mass audiences, in the sense that everybody's going to be able to sit down and watch this film in the way that... Right. Say a Scorsese, a Goodfellas. That's, everybody can sit down and watch a Goodfellas and love it, or whatever case may be. I think Wes has a certain flavor that I think that it's going to be geared towards more cinephiles, in my opinion. Maybe a little bit outside of that scope, but I just don't know if that's going to be somebody that's going to... I don't know if any of his films have been like a big blockbuster hit, per se.
Kind of on their own terms, I mean, they're playing in a different ballpark, you know what I mean? Budget-wise, everything-wise,
That's the thing that I meant more of, just like this idea that Wes Anderson can still get a, sizable enough budget. Yeah. 20 million, 30 million, whatever it may be. And he's still able to make films that are profitable in a time where those $20 to $30 million films don't really exist. So it's just the fact that I think this has had Wes Anderson's best opening weekend in his career is really impressive. So that's the part that I just found so cool. And to be in a theater, my theater, like I saw it on Saturday afternoon. My theater seemed to enjoy it pretty well. The laughter was not sparse in it. It was a very communal experience.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I know you loved it, and then I know you loved it. I was kind of middle of the road, but I also had a different experience, because I saw an advanced screening, and it was only for press. So there was only literally 6 of us in the theater. So it wasn't. So I didn't get the whole, and it was all critics. So I didn't get the whole, feel of the crowd and kind of see what everybody else was thinking. But definitely, I liked it. I didn't think it was his best work personally. I mean, I liked it. My favorite film of his is, and Jason knows this, is Moonrise Kingdom. And so I just didn't think that when he says since the Fantastic Mr. Fox, I'm like, because I like Moonrise Kingdom significantly more. So, but it's not. I don't think it's his worst film, but for me, I just kind of got it right in the middle of the road. That's kind of how I felt.
Yeah,
it's a very tough film to get into in certain scenes, and specifically the first act of the film is one where it really takes some work to connect with the story and understand what Wes is going to. And if you don't connect to it, like, it's going to be a tough toll getting through that movie. For me, I connected, I was locked in, and I loved the film.
Yeah, me too. It's a wavelength. It's a wavelength.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a movie that's not made for everybody, so it's not going to play for everybody.
Exactly.
And I like those, usually.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and just on that tip, I mean, obviously we're getting into the summer season. All the big blockbuster films are coming out. Asteroid City. I mean, what are some of the films that you've seen so far, or some of the films that you're looking forward to for 2023 this summer?
I'll focus right now on the films that I have seen already at this point. And I was actually just writing an article for the magazine that I sent in yesterday. And it was specifically focused on the 6 blockbusters that have come out this year. There have been 6 blockbusters that have $200 million plus budgets, and only one of them has been profitable this year. If I'm correct, it was Transformers: Rise of the Beast, Fast X, Little Mermaid, I'm blanking on The Flash, Elemental,
Guardians,
and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So those 6, only one of them that has been a smash box office success has been the Guardians of the Galaxy. And what I find so interesting about that is, one, you could point to superhero fatigue, specifically in the case of Flash, but also just these increasing budgets of these movies and audiences kind of rejecting them. So I find it such a fascinating point that we're in where this summer movie, where my general consensus of most of those movies I just listed, I generally like them. Right. I didn't have a huge love for any of them besides Guardians, which I did quite enjoy.
Me too.
The rest of them I found like good to average to, in the case of The Flash, which I found mediocre. And so it's so interesting to now see audiences kind of following suit and responding to the fact that they aren't as popular as they once were conceived. The fact that Fast X cost $350 million.
Do you think it was the budget, though, or do you think that it's a little bit of not only superhero fatigue, but I think just in general audiences post-COVID just haven't been going to the theaters as they were before COVID?
Here's what I'll say. I don't know if it's necessarily the budget, but I do know studios are setting themselves up for failure when they spend $200 million plus. In the case of Fast X, it was $350 million.
And that's before you get into marketing. Because marketing supposedly is an additional $200 million on top of it.
Yeah, and the general rule is you have to double whatever your production cost was, which means in the case of Fast X, it has to make $700 million. And that's where I think they're kind of setting themselves up for failure. Some of these movies would be financial successes if the budgets were reined down to like $100 million. So I do agree. I think COVID specifically has really trained audiences not to go to the theater. I mean, they just announced that The Flash will be releasing on HBO, or I guess it's now called Max. Middle of July. So it's going to have less than a 1 month theatrical run.
And to your point, I mean, that's kind of where I was leading you to is because not only that, movies are also streaming a lot quicker than they used to be in the past as well. You know, back when Jason and I first started talking and going to movies together, you would see a movie in June and it wouldn't be out on Blu-ray or DVD until December. It was like a Christmas present for people. Whereas nowadays they can show a film now and then it's kind of like, well, in a month it'll be streaming. So why go to the theater when I can just wait a month and see it at home in the comforts of my own home? Yeah,
exactly. It's just such an interesting thing. And I think Disney really felt that this summer with Elemental, where Disney Plus was designed to encourage families to stay home during the pandemic and watch all their catalog. And now they're struggling. They're past
Well,
3 animated films. Have
exactly,
tanked.
and I said, and Jason, you can obviously chime in here, but we've had this discussion before where that was my biggest concern with COVID, is when they started the streaming. I was one of the ones that said, look, I don't know if people are going to want to come back. I think people have gotten so comfortable being at home. And then now with the shortened, and then for a while they were doing the simultaneous where it would be in theaters and then it would stream at the same time, or it would be in theaters and then it would go to streaming the next week. Yeah,
you know, people
and
had
I
to
get that,
improvise.
but I just don't think the audiences have jumped on board with coming back fully to the theaters as well. So
I'll slightly disagree with you. Sorry for cutting you off.
No,
But I
go ahead.
think the difference point is that audiences seemingly are not responding to when a movie's just middle of the road. If a
I
movie
agree.
is
I
excellent,
agree.
they seem to go. I cited Top Gun Maverick last year as a case where people went to the movies. $1.5 billion.
no, that was a huge hit. Yeah,
I think
yeah.
quality matters more now.
Yeah, so quality matters more, but also the other thing that we have to consider as well is not only the quality, it's also, I think that it was like last year where, I mean, almost every film that wasn't part of either a sequel or some sort of, part of some other intellectual property in some kind of way, like an offshoot of Marvel or something of that nature, they all bombed.
large mass.
Yeah, in large mass. So, and I think that trend is still carrying in through today as well. So I think that, audiences are coming out, but they're coming out for some of the sequels and some of the bigger films and things of those natures as well. So
I noticed it specifically during Oscar season when I cover that. Those films were financially bombing at the box office when they were coming out. And
Which ones?
Just the Oscar movies, the Banshees.
Oh, yeah,
of
yeah,
Inisherin,
and
the
then
Fabelmans,
all of the Oscar films pretty much tanked last year.
Tar, and then
Yeah.
I post those reviews on my channel, and they do nothing. And then all of a sudden, when they'd get on HBO, or they'd get on Hulu, or they'd get on Netflix, whatever it was, my views skyrocketed all of a sudden, and it was just like that was
People
proof
are
to
searching
me.
for them now, and they want to see what other people thought, and I think that goes back to what I'm saying about people waiting for it to come out, because I think a lot of people will see an Oscar film and say, you know what, it looks like it's good. I'm glad it won these awards. I'm just gonna wait until it comes out on Blu-ray or streaming or something of that nature, and I'll just rent it. And I think that's kind of the trend that's been kind of going on.
Yeah, very few movies have been able to break out. For everything everywhere all at once, and every Elvis you have about 5 failed intellectual properties that just were the start of something that never ended up becoming something.
Very fair.
Yeah, it's a complicated question. There's a lot of things at play, because you could say it's franchise fatigue or superhero fatigue, but some of those still do great, like Guardians of the Galaxy. You can say people aren't ready to come back, but then there have been movies that have been huge success. I think I tend to agree with you that it seems like people are more selective now, and frankly, as a big Pixar fan in the past, nothing about the Elemental trailer
Grabbed you.
was
Yeah, I
intriguing.
wasn't. I didn't even see it.
I've never been a huge superhero fan, even though I like a lot of those movies.
Right.
But lately, they've just been even worse than normal. You know what I mean? It's the same thing over and over and over. So, although I loved Guardians of the Galaxy, I loved Across the Spider-Verse. So it's not like I don't dislike all of them, but
you can
so
still
many
make
of
a
them.
good sequel or Marvel or superhero film,
Yeah.
and I'll still go to the ones that look good. But I think the fatigue is if it's just going to look like every other superhero film, and you can totally interchange whoever the main lead star is, or half the time they have so many additional superheroes in the film itself that it's like, well, whose film is this? I go back to before COVID, but Captain America: Civil War. That could have been anybody's movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily.
Yeah, it was really an Avengers movie.
Yeah,
people said that at the time even.
So it's just one of those things where, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, before we wrap up, just want to kind of quickly ask you what are some of your favorite films of all time?
Oh, favorite films of all time. I will tell you the film that made me fall in love with movies was Back to the Future. I saw that when I was 11, and that was it. That was Robert Zemeckis had that just grab on me, which unfortunately I still watch every movie he makes, despite the quality of Pinocchio and The Witches and Welcome to Marwen. There's just something about that magic of Back to the Future. Tying it into a film that I just watched recently, I just saw this still of Michael J. Fox documentary on Apple TV.
Great documentary.
And it's such a great one.
Yeah.
And just there is that energy of Michael J. Fox where it's just they have this other performer and he's not clicking at all. Eric Stoltz, I believe, is the actor who's supposed to play him. He's not clicking at all. Michael J. Fox is just able to come in and he doesn't even have an understanding of what exactly the role needs, and Zemeckis is kind of lost on what the role needs. And Michael J. Fox just comes in and just
Nails it.
he understands it. He just brings an energy, and that's kind of the magic of the movie. So Back to the Future is probably the one that I would cite as my favorite film of all time. Star Wars, of course, is up there for me. And then let's see what else. I will tell you, as growing up a kid of the early 2000s, the Looney Tunes Back in Action with Brendan Fraser holds a special place in my heart.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Well, it was great having you on the show here and just kind of just talking film. Where can people find you if they're interested in reading your stuff, or where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube, the Beneverse Movie Channel. I'm on YouTube. I'm on all the social medias. I write for Highbrow Magazine, so if you go there, you'll see my reviews or film articles on there. And then, so I'm just around, and you'll catch me at the movies. Any Sacramento theater, I'm probably there any given night.
Yeah, and I've seen you there quite a few times myself.
We've run into each other a few times.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for being on the show, Ben. It was great to have you. We'll definitely have you back. Maybe we'll catch up with you sometime at the end of the year and do a recap of 2023 and see how things went.
Thank you for having me on, and I know you'll both be on my show talking Martin Scorsese in the next coming months, so that's going to be really exciting as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Be ready to do that. Well, thanks again, and we'll be back again with another show. Thanks for watching.
Soundstripe. Soundstripe.